The gun was 3 inches from my face when I realized my husband wasn't who I thought he was. "Rosie, get behind me," Marco rasped, his scarred hand trembling as he pushed me backward. The man I'd married 2 months ago, this broken, disfigured old man who could barely walk without his cane, was now standing at full height between me and 3 armed men in our living room. No trembling. No cane. No fear. "You should have stayed hidden, Don Vincenzo," the lead gunman sneered. "The Bratva's been looking for you for 5 years. Don Vincenzo? My husband's name was Marco Castellano. A retired accountant. 73 years old. Dying of heart disease. That's what my stepfather told me when he sold me into this marriage. "Rosie, when I tell you to run, you run," Marco said in a voice I'd never heard before. Younger. Stronger. Commanding. "You go to the panic room behind the bookshelf. Code is your birthday. You don't come out until you hear my voice and mine alone." The first gunshot shattered our wedding photo on the mantel. But let me back up, because this nightmare started 2 months earlier, the day my stepfather walked into my bedroom with a smile that made my skin crawl. "Rosie, baby girl, I found you a husband." Frank Morrison wasn't my real father. He married my mom 3 years ago, and the second she died from cancer last year, he started looking at me like I was a commodity. "His name is Marco Castellano," Frank said. "Retired businessman. Very wealthy. Very old. Very sick. Needs a wife to care for him in his final days." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "You are if you want to keep this house," Frank said. "Your mama left everything to me, remember? Marco's offering $400,000 for a wife. You marry him, take care of him for however long he's got left, and when he dies, you inherit everything. Plus, I'll give you $50,000. I had $847 in my bank account. My nursing school tuition was $40,000. I was 2 semesters away from my degree and working double shifts at a diner just to survive. I had no choice. "When's the wedding?" I whispered. The ceremony was in a courthouse. I wore a white dress from Target. And when I saw Marco, my stomach dropped. The left side of his face was a mess of burned scars, the skin twisted and pulled tight. His hands were gnarled and spotted with age, shaking constantly. He walked with a heavy limp, leaning on an ornate black cane. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent, watching me with an intensity that made me feel naked. "You must be Rosie," he rasped, his voice like gravel. "You're even more beautiful than your stepfather said." When the judge said, "You may kiss the bride," Marco simply took my hand and pressed his scarred lips to my knuckles. "I won't force intimacy you don't want," he whispered. "This is a business arrangement. Nothing more." I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt sad. This broken old man, buying companionship because no one would choose him otherwise. Marco's home was a fortress. A massive estate outside the city, surrounded by high walls and security cameras. Armed guards at every entrance. "You have guards?" I asked nervously. "I have enemies," Marco said simply. "Old business rivals. You'll be safe here." The inside was beautiful. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that probably cost more than my entire life. But it felt empty. Cold. "Your room is on the 2nd floor, Marco said. "Mine is on the 3rd. We'll take meals together, but otherwise, you're free to do as you please." "What about taking care of you?" I asked. "I have nurses who come 3 times a week," Marco interrupted. "I just need someone in this house who isn't paid to tolerate me." My heart cracked a little. "Then let's have dinner together," I said. "Every night. And you can tell me about your life." Marco looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "You want to know about me?" "Well, we're married," I said with a small smile. "Might as well get to know each other." Dinner became my favorite part of the day. Marco was fascinating. He spoke 4 languages. He'd traveled everywhere: Sicily, Tokyo, Moscow, Rio. He knew history, art, literature. He quoted Dante in Italian and Shakespeare in the original English. "You're not just an accountant," I said one night, laughing. "I was many things," Marco said carefully. "Sometimes those things weren't legal. Sometimes they weren't moral. But they were necessary." You're being cryptic on purpose, I accused. I'm protecting you, Marco corrected. The less you know about my past, the safer you are. I should have pressed. But I was starting to care about this strange, broken man, and I didn't want to shatter whatever fragile trust we were building. 3 weeks in, I caught him without his cane. I'd come down early for breakfast and found Marco in his study, standing at full height, moving papers across his desk with steady hands. When I called out, Marco grabbed his cane so fast he nearly knocked over his coffee. You seem stronger this morning, I said, studying him. Good day, he said quickly. Some days are better than others. But I'd seen how fast he'd moved, how steady he'd been. Something wasn't right. By week 5, we were drinking wine together almost every night, talking until 2 in the morning. Tell me about the scars, I said one night. Marco's hand went to his face unconsciously. House fire. 20 years ago. Everyone who looked at me saw a monster, including myself. I reached across the table and took his twisted hand in mine. I don't see a monster. What do you see? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Someone lonely, I said. Someone brilliant and funny and kind. Someone who deserves to be loved for who he is, not what he looks like. Marco pulled his hand away like I'd burned him. Don't care about me, he said harshly. This arrangement has an expiration date, Rosie. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. He left the room, and I sat there certain of one thing. I was falling in love with my dying husband. Everything changed the day I saw the tattoo. I was bringing Marco his medication when I pushed open his partially open bedroom door and found him shirtless. On his shoulder blade was a tattoo. A black crown with a serpent wrapped around it. The serpent's crown. The mark of the Vincenzo crime family. Marco turned and saw me staring. You're Mafia, I whispered. Was, Marco corrected. Past tense. I've been out for 5 years. You don't just leave the Mafia. You do if you fake your death, Marco said calmly. You do if you spend 5 years hiding as a disfigured old man. My brain was short-circuiting. You faked all of this? The scars? The illness? The age? Prosthetics and makeup, Marco admitted. Very expensive, very convincing. I needed to disappear, Rosie. The Bratva put a $10 million bounty on my head. Every assassin in 3 continents was hunting me. So you bought a wife to complete your disguise, I said, anger flooding through me. No, Marco said sharply. I bought a wife because my grandfathers will required me to be married to access my inheritance. I needed that money to pay off the right people. Frank approached me with the offer, and I thought I'd marry someone who didn't care. Someone who'd take the money and ignore me. I didn't expect you. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're destroying me, Marco said, his voice raw. Every morning when you smile at breakfast. Every night when you listen to my stories. Every moment you touch my hand like I'm not a monster. You're destroying every wall I've built. Good, I said fiercely. Because you're not a monster. I'm a killer, Rosie, Marco said. I've done things that would make you run screaming. Then why did you save those kids last week? I challenged. He'd thought I was asleep when he'd taken that phone call. But I'd heard everything. A trafficking ring busted. 12 children recovered. An anonymous tip. Marco's face went still. You heard that? You're still fighting them, I said. Even in hiding. You're still protecting people. That doesn't erase what I've done. No, I agreed. But it means you're more than your worst choices. Marco crossed the room in 3 quick strides. No limp, no cane, just fluid, powerful movement. He grabbed my face in hands that weren't trembling at all. I'm going to kiss you, he said. And then you're going to leave this house and never come back. Because if you stay, you'll die. You don't get to make that choice for me, I said. Yes, I do. Because I love you, Marco said. Then he kissed me. And the world exploded. When Marco pulled back, he started removing the prosthetics. The scarred skin peeled away, revealing smooth, olive skin underneath. The drooping eye was a contact lens. The twisted hands were gloves. Within minutes, my dying 73-year-old husband had transformed into a devastatingly handsome man in his mid-30s. This is me, he said. Don Vincenzo Castellano, former head of the Serpent's Crown. Wanted by the Bratva, the FBI, and 3 rival families. If you stay with me, you paint a target on your back. I should have run. Instead, I grabbed his shirt and pulled him back down to me. I'm not going anywhere, I said against his lips. Rosie. My whole life, people have made choices for me, I interrupted. My stepfather sold me. You bought me. Well, I'm deciding now. And I choose you. Marco's eyes searched mine. You don't know what you're choosing. I stopped and looked at him. Same dark eyes. Same sharp intelligence. Same unexpected kindness. You're still the same person, I said slowly. The face changed, but everything else is the same. Everything except the danger, Marco said seriously. Rosie, the Bratva found me. Those men asking questions in town? They're getting closer. So what do? We run, Marco said. I have safe houses in 6 countries. New identities prepared. The window exploded inward. Which brings us back to 3 guns pointed at my head and my husband standing between me and death. The panic room, Rosie. Now. Marco roared. I ran. Behind me I heard gunfire, breaking glass, screams. I found the bookshelf, entered my birthday, and fell into a small reinforced room. The security monitors showed chaos. Marco was fighting, actually fighting, moving like a trained killer. Every punch was precise. Every move was lethal. I watched him take down 2 of the gunmen with his bare hands. The third one pulled a knife. Marco dodged the first slash, caught the second, and twisted the man's arm until the knife fell. Then he delivered a strike to the man's throat that dropped him instantly. 3 men. 30 seconds. Marco stood in the wreckage, breathing hard, covered in blood. Then he looked directly at the camera. Rosie, it's safe. Come out. I opened the door on shaking legs. The house was destroyed. And Marco stood in the center of it all, still perfect, still powerful, still somehow mine. Are you hurt? Were my first words. You're asking if I'm hurt? Marco looked incredulous. Rosie, I just killed 3 men. Hurt, I repeated. No, he said quietly. But we need to leave. More will come. Okay. You're not scared of me? Should I be? I just killed 3 people in front of you. They were trying to kill us, I pointed out. Despite everything, Marco started laughing. I love you, Rosie Morrison. I love you too, Vincenzo Castellano, I said. Now let's go. We had 15 minutes. Marco was throwing essentials into a bag when I stopped him. What about Frank? I interrupted. Marco froze. What about him? He sold me to you, I said slowly. Which means he knew who you were. Which means he told someone. His phone rang. He answered on speaker. Vincenzo, this is Frank Morrison, my stepfather's voice oozed through. The Bratva's offering $5 million for information on your location. But I'm reasonable. Give me $10 million, and I'll tell them you died in tonight's attack. Or I could just kill you, Marco suggested. I've already sent a dead man's switch to 6 different people, Frank said. If I don't check in every 12 hours, they all get your location. Pier 17, Warehouse 4. 1 hour. The line went dead. It's a trap, I said. Obviously, Marco agreed. But if we don't go, he'll sell my location anyway. When we arrived at the pier, I took my position on a nearby roof with binoculars. Frank was there with 6 armed men. Marco walked in alone, a duffel bag in hand. I have your money, Marco called out. Throw it here, Frank ordered. Marco tossed the bag. Frank unzipped it and his face went pale. This is fake. It's real enough, Marco said. Now call off your deal with the Bratva. I don't think so, Frank said, snapping his fingers. The 6 men raised their weapons. Actually, a new voice said, I think you should listen to him. A dozen men emerged from the shadows, all wearing the Serpent's Crown insignia. Marco's men. Frank's face went white. This isn't possible. You sold my wife, Marco said, his voice lethal. Did you really think I'd come here without backup? A striking woman in her 50s emerged from a black SUV. She had Frank's phone in her hand. "Maria Vincenzo," Marco said. "Sister." "Little brother," she replied. "No one threatens my baby brother and lives." She pressed a button on the phone. Frank's recorded voice played. "I made the whole thing up. Vincenzo's dead. Stop looking for him." "I intercepted your dead man switch," Maria explained. "As far as the Bratva knows, you died in a car accident." Frank was shaking now. "You can't." "Rosie!" Frank shouted suddenly, looking right at my position. "Rosie, please. I'm your stepfather." I stood up. "You're not my stepfather," I called down. "You're the man who sold me to save his own skin. You're nothing to me." I looked at Marco. "Do what needs to be done." Marco nodded to his men. I turned away. I didn't need to see what happened next. 6 months later, Malta is beautiful. We have a villa overlooking the Mediterranean. White walls, blue shutters, olive trees in the garden. Marco still runs the family business from a distance. His sister handles day-to-day operations. He's just my husband now. "What are you thinking about?" Marco asks, wrapping his arms around me as we watch the sunset. "How different my life is," I admit. 6 months ago, I thought I was marrying a dying old man. "And now you're married to a criminal in hiding," Marco says dryly. "I traded up from Frank," I correct. "Everything else is a bonus." Marco laughs and kisses my temple. "Did you finish your application?" "Sent it this morning," I confirm. "If I get accepted, I start nursing school in the fall." "You'll get accepted," Marco says. "You're brilliant." "You saw me," Marco corrects softly. "The real me. Even when I was hiding behind prosthetics and lies, you saw who I really was." I turn in his arms. "And who are you really?" "Yours," Marco says simply. "I'm yours, Rosie Castellano. For however long you'll have me." "Forever sounds good," I say. "Forever," Marco agrees. He kisses me as the sun sets over the Mediterranean. I was sold into a marriage I didn't want, to a man who wasn't what he seemed, and somehow ended up with exactly what I needed. Partnership. And yeah, occasionally we deal with assassins or international crime syndicates. But every relationship has its challenges. Ours just come with weapons and private jets. I wouldn't change a thing. If this story grabbed you from start to finish, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me what you thought of the twist. And remember, sometimes the best love stories start with the worst lies. See you in the next